Good morning and welcome to Peace Out, where we are all learning together to peace out. Oh, and what a journey it has been, right? Coming up on 6-year anniversary, devotional anniversary, we'll call it that, right? Where we've been doing this can you believe that? We've been doing this for 6 years, meeting together about 8 o'clock almost every morning, at least every weekday morning, except for a few little breaks here and there when we had to, right? Just talking about how God gave us peace. Jesus said, I'm leaving my peace with you. And he never took it back. So we can walk in that peace every single day. I love that about God. That is so amazing. God is so amazing, right? So amazing. So this week we've been talking about people who have done what they needed to get a hold of God, to touch God, to walk with God. You know, we talked about Zacchaeus, how he ran ahead and climbed the tree. Nobody else in scriptures do we have a story that they climbed a tree to get to see God, just to see God. He was trying to see God. And I like to draw that parallel in our lives, that sometimes we got to do some stuff to really have that relationship with God. Sometimes we got to put the effort in, right? And so we're looking at people who put the effort in to have that relationship, to develop that relationship, to find him, to get a hold of him, which is what we're going to talk about today. So, and I've already got tomorrow's ready. I thought I had somebody else in mind for today, but this morning as I was reading, praying, and studying this morning, I thought of this story. It's a familiar story. We've talked about it a few times, but I want to look at the tenacity of Jacob. Jacob was in a bind, and you can read the story in Genesis 32. It's several chapters actually. Jacob tricked Esau, got his blessing, and then he ran away because he was afraid that Esau was going to be mad. And Esau was mad and probably would have killed him had he stayed. Then he works for Laban. We're talking about, this is a years-long story that we can read in like 15, 20 minutes max, right? Well, it wouldn't take that long to just read it. If you don't stop and think and ask questions like I do, it won't take long to read it. But he goes and lives with Laban. Laban tricks him. But you reap what you sow. He tricked Esau. Laban tricked him and gave him the wrong wife, gave him the other sister. And then so he had the two wives, the two sisters. And then Laban's not being fair with Jacob. And so Jacob's trying to get away. And so now he's taking all of his wealth that God has given him over the years, right? And he's going back, and he's going back to Esau. And he's not real comfortable with it. He doesn't know if Esau's going to be mad. He doesn't know if Esau is going to want all of his wealth. He doesn't know if Esau is going to kill him, if he's going to accept him. He's in a predicament. And we find ourselves in those kind of places, and he's kind of done it to himself. But it's just life. Isn't that just life? We just get ourselves in binds. We make decisions, and then we reap from those decisions. We sow things, and we reap what we sow. We always reap what we sow. Always. You cannot sow one thing and get something else. You can't plant a corn seed and get apples. You can't plant an apple seed and get oranges. What you sow is what you will reap. And it's true in our lives too, but that's a whole nother lesson. Anyway, so we've got Jacob coming back, and it's the night. He sent his children and wives and flocks away and protected them for the night, and he's alone. And he is at Mount, let's see, where is he? I don't know where he is. Anyway, but here he is, the Jabbok River, wherever that is, right? And in the middle of the night, a man came. Now, in the New King James and some of the other ones, that the man is capitalized, meaning that it was probably, a lot say it was one of the times that Jesus appeared even in the Old Testament as a person or as an angel. So the most leading thought here is that it was an angel of God, a messenger of God. Some say it was actually pre-incarnate Jesus and all that. We're not going to get into all that. It doesn't matter. It was a messenger of God, period. I'll call it an angel maybe. But anyway, he comes and he wrestles. He comes to the camp, and it says he wrestled with him till dawn. So Jacob wrestled with this angel, this messenger of God, all night long. He refused to let go. He had to have gotten tired. But finally he was like, the angel, the man of God, the messenger of God said, let me go. It's morning. I've got to go now. And Jacob said, I will not let you go unless you bless me. I'm not going to let you go. That's the key thought there. Now we know that that the man said, he said, you've struggled with both God and men, and you have won. Haven't we done that in some ways? No matter, not on the level Jacob has, right? But haven't we struggled with humanity? Haven't we struggled with our own flesh and blood, being our own humanness? We struggle. We because we're human, right? And then we do struggle with God. Now, I've had some arguments with God. I don't think I've ever won one. Pretty sure I haven't, right? But sometimes I'm like, God, why this or why that or what were you thinking, God? Or why didn't you tell me this? Or we have these struggles, and sometimes there's a struggle of faith. When something bad happens, where did God go? Well, He didn't go anywhere. Just because something bad happened doesn't mean He packed up and left, right? But we have these struggles with our faith. We're trying to trust God, and then something happens, and we don't understand. There's so many things in life that we just are never going to understand, and there's that struggle of that faith. When Chris had his wreck, I had these years of totally redefining my faith, having to totally redefine it and say, well, what is faith? Isn't something that helps keep me from something happening. Faith is something that keeps me when something happens, and so it's not a protective shield that means nothing bad's ever going to happen. It is a protective shield, and the shield of faith that says that I can quench all the darts that do come at me. I have God with me no matter what comes, right? So he tells Jacob, you've struggled with both God and man, and you have won. And then he touched his hip, and he walked with a limp the rest of his life, because his hip was whatever the angel or whatever did to his hip. But I want to look at the tenacity of Jacob. Jacob's like, you are not going to let me go. I'm not going to let you go until you bless me. You are going to bless me till I let you go. I'm going to hold on. And how long would he have gone on? I don't know, right? But I love that tenacity. That's the tenacity I want with serving God. I want to have that tenacity that says, I don't care what life looks like. I don't care what this feels like. I don't care if it's a pandemic or not, if it's this or that, or if things go all wrong or things go all right. I just want to know God. That was the cry of my heart as a 6-year-old child when I was sitting in church. I don't know what anybody said. All I know is I was like, I have to know God, and I went to the altar. I hope it was the right time of the service. All I knew is I just needed to know God, and that's been the cry of my heart all my life, is just, I want to know Him. And I see that in Jacob here. He's just like, you're not letting me go. I'm not letting you go until you bless me. And I want to have that same tenacity with God. I want to have the same tenacity, even studying scriptures and saying, I'm going to get in here until I figure something out, right? Until I figure today out. I may just be able to figure out how to make it to noon right now, or to the next 10 minutes or something, or make it past this, or make it through that. But I want to get in this word, and I want to know it until I can live it, until I can figure out some things in my own life. I'm not going to let go of the word. I'm not going to let go of God. And that's the tenacity I want in my life. And I think we all as believers, is admirable to look at Jacob and go, and hear him say, I'm not letting you go. And I want a generation, let me just say that, I want a nation that says to God, I'm not letting you go until I figure out how to have your blessing, until I figure out how to walk in this peace, how to walk in His grace, how to embrace the mercies of God and the Word of God and the character of God, and have that operating in my life. I want that tenacity too, because Jacob was a different person from this time on. Once he left Laban, really, he had already been in that transition. As a matter of fact, in this struggling, he renamed him. He said, what's your name? And he said, Jacob, which means wrestler or deceiver. And he says, that's not your name anymore. That's not your name anymore. He said, now your name is Israel. And so he says, your name is now Israel. And that's when we have the 12 tribes of Israel, and that's the whole nation of Israel. That became Jacob's name. And very few people in scriptures had God change their name. But Jacob was one of them, because he said, I'm not going to let go till I figure this out. And that's the kind of tenacity I want us to have as believers, is I'm not going to let this word go till I figure some things out. There's some things we are never going to understand. We're never going to figure out. But I want to figure out enough to know how to operate and live and walk in God's grace and God's mercy and His peace every single day that I have breath in this body, right? And God will not disappoint. God will not disappoint. As a matter of fact, Jacob named that place Face of God. I don't know what, Peniel or something like that. Whatever the word was, he named it Face of God because he said, I've seen God, I've touched God, and I'm not going to let him go. And I'm not going to let him go either. I hope you don't either, because that's where we'll find that true peace. And that's where we can truly peace out. Peace out. Have a great day. I'll see you again tomorrow.